So let's talk about the Nigerian electricity transition market, which was enthroned a few years ago with the privatization program of the power sector under the Jonathan's administration. Today, the market yet faces several issues, among which is debt within the various sections of the value chain. A few days ago, the Central Bank of Nigeria wrote a 2-page letter to all banks outlining new directives on how to improve payment discipline and boost the overall quality of electricity generation, transmission, and distribution. So is this the medicine that the sector sorely needs? Johnson Chukwu is a policy analyst and CEO at Cowry Asset Management, and he joins us now to look into this. Good evening, sir. Thank you for coming.
Good evening, Boston. Thank you for having me.
How messy is the electricity transition market, especially when we talk about the billions and billions of debt that sometimes overlap between the GenCos, the DISCOs, NBET, TCN, the customers, and even the government?
Well, Boston, the way I would put it is this, that the electricity industry in Nigeria has failed to achieve commercial viability. And that's a pointer to how messy it is, because the reality is that the DISCOs are not collecting enough revenue as to be able to pay to NBET, that is Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading Company. And NBET is not in a position to pay the generation companies and transmission companies. And the generation companies are not in a position to pay the gas suppliers. So you see the entire value chain is not able to achieve commercial viability. And that's the challenge we have today. And until we achieve that commercial viability, that electricity industry will never be vibrant. It will never be viable. So that the challenge we have, it's as messy as it can be, to the extent that has several years after the privatization process, we have still not achieved commercial viability, despite if you look at the multi-year tariff order and all the structure that we have put in place at the point of privatization, still we've not moved the needle.
So do you think what do you make of the latest intervention that the central bank wants to play in the payment system within the value chain?
For me, I think what the central bank is trying to do is to ring-fence the revenues of the DISCOs. Central bank obviously think the leakages are partly coming from revenue collections. And as you know, during the privatization process, one of the criteria for qualifying as a DISCO to win any of the franchises was that you must make sure that you have the capacity to reduce your average aggregate technical, commercial, and collection losses. So if you are unable to reduce the aggregate technical, commercial, and collection losses, then you will not achieve the necessary milestone that is required to make the electricity, to win the electricity industry from government subvention. Of course, you know the government has continued to, the central bank and the federal government has continued to give loans to the players in that sector because of that inability to reduce the ATC and C. And what the central bank is trying to do is let them they are trying to see if they can eliminate the commercial losses, particularly the collection losses, to know if part of the leakages we are seeing in the industry today is because the collections are not coming into the revenue stream or not being reported by the DISCOs. So the central bank primary objective is basically how do we reduce the collection losses? Collection losses could come in the form of the money comes into the purse of the DISCO, but it's not remitted to NBET. And because it's not remitted, NBET does not have enough revenue to meet the other contributors to the value chain.
So in other words, the banking sector here plays a major role because on one hand, these power companies during the privatization during Jonathan administration were also part of the privatization. A couple of them really rolled out millions and millions of dollars to support these GenCos. Now customers are paying, we have excess billing, we have what you call in Nigeria crazy billings and what have you, and we have new arrangement of bulk purchases, yet we don't see the money.
You know, Boston, let's start from the first point you mentioned, the issue of crazy billing. You know, crazy billing is coming from the fact that the DISCOs are not able, or the industry, let me not just limit it to DISCOs, the industry are not able to provide meters to the consumers. And because meters are not provided to consumers, you see some of those who are metered are not paying their bills because the collection process is not foolproof. Others are not metered, some are bypassing the meters. And then those who are not metered, in many instances, the DISCOs are imposing what you call exorbitant charges on them in form of crazy billing to compensate for the losses that they have from the power they buy from these GenCos and then the power they sell to the consumer. So what is happening is that a disco will buy a certain volume of power from a GenCo through NBET. And then when they get the revenue from the sale of that power, they don't have enough revenue to, there's commission with the power they've sold. And what they now do is, because there are several leakages along the value chain, they now impose a kind of punitive charge on those few who can pay. And that's why you're seeing those crazy bills. But if to address that, we need to ensure that the metering process that have been put in place is effective, that all consumers are properly metered, and that you have smart metering, so that even if the consumer tries to bypass the meter, the reading that shows the power volume of power that entered that particular residence or commercial office is measured and is now charged.
So do you think these, trying to use the banking sector, you look at this letter to all the banks, there should be energy collection, accounts are dedicated, there should be a dedicated segregated account per discos for customer energy collections. Do you think this will now go to the heart of resolving that debt problem within the electricity sector, or you think more should be done?
Well, I think it will not solve the problem. The problem are multifaceted. At best, it will address the collection losses, or maybe the commercial losses. So in that case, power is actually sold, the consumer pays for the power, but the amount paid by the consumer is not tracked in the system, and obviously the discos use it for other purposes. That's the best it can eliminate. It will not eliminate the technical losses. Technical losses are coming from the absence or the weakness in the distribution network. So power is lost along the distribution chain. Then you have to deal with the other aspects of credits. Of course, today you have two types of meters in the country. You have the prepaid meters, then you have the postpaid meters. When you talk about the postpaid meters, you are talking of credits, because the person will be charged only after the person had consumed. So in that instance, there's also a risk that you are granting credit, because when you talk of a postpaid meter, that means a credit is involved, because the person only pay at the end of the month or at the end of the period when they get the bill. So you have not eliminated that. You need to eliminate that by ensuring that all meters are smart meters and they are postpaid, they are prepaid meters. You need to strengthen the distribution network to reduce the technical losses. And then you need to also address the issue of appropriate pricing of power. Today, we still have some level of subsidy because the power tariff is not yet cost reflective. So until we achieve those things, you will not solve the problem just by reducing the commercial losses or the collection losses.
But at least the bank and others will know where the money goes. So you're not surprised that the electricity, gas, and steam sector declined 3% in the second quarter in our GDP. Thank you so much. This is a conversation. There's no single bullet to solve it, as it were. Johnson Chukwu of Cowry Asset Management, thank you very much for speaking on this.